Okay, let's dive right in. We're unpacking something really quite remarkable today.
Definitely.
A pretty stunning operation that reportedly targeted Russian heavy bombers, thousands of miles deep inside Russia itself.
Yeah, this is a complex one. And our focus today, just to be clear for everyone listening, is understanding this operation based only on one specific source.
That's right. We're working from a detailed YouTube transcript from the Kyiv Independent about what they've called Operation Spiderweb.
So think of this as us pulling out the key pieces from that report.
Right.
What were the aims, the methods, what impact did they report? And crucially, what does that source say we still don't know for sure?
It's quite a story. So maybe let's start with the basic problem Ukraine was facing, according to this source.
Cities and villages in Donetsk region and beyond into ruins. And this is exactly what we are fighting to stop. We are fighting against death, the death that Russia is bringing to our land. Dear friends, let us now take a moment of silence to honor all Ukrainian children and all our people, civilians and soldiers, whose lives have been taken by this war. Please.
Okay, so the core challenge, as the Kyiv Independent piece lays it out, revolves around Russia's heavy bombers.
Right, the ones launching those big missile barrages against Ukrainian cities.
Yeah, precisely. The issue is these bombers, they operate from bases way, way inside Russia. We're talking thousands of miles deep.
Miles from Ukraine.
Yeah, and they often launch their missiles from safe zones, like over the Caspian Sea. So they're well beyond the reach of Ukraine's usual air defenses, even their longer-range missile systems.
Which presents a huge strategic problem, doesn't it? How do you even touch these things if they never actually come near your territory or your typical weapons ranges?
Exactly. How do you counter that threat?
And this is where, according to the Kyiv Independence account, the solution gets, well, interesting. It wasn't about matching Russia with bigger, more expensive weapons.
No, apparently not. The source suggests the thinking went in a different direction. Smaller, maybe smarter, using something already common on the battlefield.
It was.
First-person view drones, FPV drones. Relatively cheap, widely available.
Huh. Okay. So using these small drones against massive strategic bombers, that's the core of this Operation Spiderweb they described.
That seems to be the premise outlined in the source, yes.
Right. Let's dig into the planning and how they reportedly pulled this off, because the details in the transcript are pretty wild. It says the SBU, Ukraine's security service, was behind it.
That's what the source states. And it wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing either. The transcript mentions it was like a year and a half in the planning.
A year and a half. Wow. And President Zelensky himself reportedly oversaw it. The source quotes him calling it an absolutely unique operation.
He did, according to the report. And the method described, well, it does sound like something out of the spy thriller.
Tell us about it.
So the report details that these FPV drones were apparently smuggled into Russia, then hidden inside the roofs of, get this, wooden cabins.
Wooden cabins.
Yeah, these cabins were then transported by truck, seemingly innocuously, towards the air bases they were targeting.
Okay.
Once they were close enough, the roofs were somehow retracted remotely, and the drones just flew out heading towards the bombers.
That is audacious.
Yeah.
Just launching drones from a truck carrying a cabin. And the source mentions how this first came to light.
It does. Apparently, videos started popping up on social media, posted by, the source calls them bemused Russians, showing drones flying out of a truck towards an airbase that was already on fire.
Unbelievable. And there's another detail in the source attributed to Zelensky that's just hard to fathom.
Oh, you mean the location of the command center?
Yeah. He reportedly said publicly that the office running this operation inside Russia was right next door to an FSB headquarters in one of their regions.
If that's accurate as reported, I mean, the nerve involved is just, wow.
Kind of mind-blowing. And the scale. The source, again, cites Zelensky. How many drones are we talking about?
The number mentioned is 117 drones deployed, with 117 operators involved. Zelensky reportedly expressed, satisfaction that this long-planned operation potentially hit over 40 units of Russian strategic aircraft.
Over 40. Okay, so that leads us straight into the targets and what the SBU actually claimed they achieved, according to the Kyiv Independent report.
Right, so the operation reportedly targeted 4 Russian air bases at the same time. And 2 of those bases were, as we said, thousands of miles from the Ukrainian border.
And the SBU's claims, reported in the source, they were pretty big, weren't they?
Very big. They claimed over 40 aircraft were hit across those 4 bases.
What types of aircraft?
The report mentions hitting A-50 surveillance planes. Those are the big AWACS-type aircraft, plus the heavy bombers like the Tu-95s and the Tu-22M3s.
Okay. And they provided some proof.
The SBU did release a video, which the source mentions, reportedly showing several aircraft burning at one specific base, Blaya.
And the overall damage assessment.
The SBU's claims, as reported, were around $7 billion in damage, and maybe the most significant claim, disabling 1/3 of Russia's entire cruise missile bomber fleet.
1/3. That's huge.
The head of the SBU was quoted calling it a devastating blow and a serious slap in the face to Russia.
Let's just pause on that 1/3 claim. Does the source give any context for that number?
It does provide some figures. It notes that, according to their information, at the start of 2025, Russia had about 120 heavy bombers total across the specific types mentioned, Tu-22s, Tu-95s, Tu-160s.
Okay, so hitting around 40, like Zelensky mentioned.
Yeah, hitting 40 out of 120 would line up mathematically with that 1/3 claim reported by the SBU.
Got it. And the source flags the A-50 aircraft as a particularly important target, right?
Absolutely. The Kyiv Independent piece really highlights these. They're crucial for Russia detecting air defenses, guiding missiles, coordinating fighter jets, and they're expensive, reportedly around $350 million each.
And Russia doesn't have many.
That's the key point the source raises. Citing Ukraine's military intelligence chief, it suggests Russia might have had as few as 6 operational A-50s back in February 2024. Ukraine had already claimed shooting down another one since then.
So losing any more would be a massive blow.
Exactly. And the source suggests it's possible that Operation Spiderweb might have destroyed or damaged even more of these A-50s, though it frames it as a possibility based on the claims.
Okay, a potentially huge impact if those claims hold up. Now, the Kyiv Independent piece is also careful about verification, isn't it? It talks about differing accounts and what's actually been confirmed independently.
Right. It emphasizes that confirming the full extent of the SBU's claims is still difficult. Independent verification so far seems limited mainly to satellite imagery.
And what does the satellite imagery show, according to the source?
Well, focusing on the Blaya Air Base, the images mentioned in the transcript do seem to show significant damage. They reportedly confirm at least 3 Tu-95 bombers and 1 Tu-22M3 destroyed there,
Okay.
plus another Tu-95 visibly damaged. There's also mention of another image showing 2 more likely destroyed Tu-22M3s, possibly at Blaya or another base called Yelnya.
So some visual evidence, but maybe not matching the full 40-plus aircraft claim yet.
Not from the independent satellite imagery discussed in the source, no. It also mentions that Ukraine's own general staff made a statement around June 3rd saying Russia lost 12 aircraft total in recent events, but without giving specifics on types or locations.
Interesting. So maybe the confirmed damage, based on the evidence presented in the source, is more concentrated at just 2 of the 4 bases targeted, Yelnya and Blaya.
That appears to be the implication from the currently available verification mentioned in the report, yes. The Russian Ministry of Defense, for its part, acknowledged attacks happened at 4 bases.
What did they say?
They claimed they thwarted the attacks at the other 2 bases, and they described the whole thing as a terrorist attack.
Which the Kyiv Independent piece points out is maybe ironic terminology.
Yes. The source notes the irony of using that term when the targets were clearly military air bases and strategic bombers.
Right, an observation from the source itself. So moving to reactions, how has this played out? The source says the Kremlin hasn't said much.
Yeah, pretty quiet is the phrase used regarding the official Kremlin line.
But others have been talking.
Oh, yes. According to the piece, Russian military bloggers have been much more vocal. Some apparently described it as a black day for aviation, so definite ripples in those circles.
And the significance overall, as framed by the Kyiv Independent. What's the takeaway?
For Ukraine, the report suggests it provided a really significant morale boost, more than 3 years into the full-scale war. A sign they can still land major blows.
And for Russia.
A stark reminder, the source implies, that even targets deep inside their territory, thousands of miles from the front, aren't necessarily safe. That Ukraine still seems capable of these sophisticated long-range strikes.
Okay, so let's just quickly recap what this Kyiv Independent transcript lays out for us. Ukraine faces this major challenge with Russian bombers operating safely far away.
They devised this, well, frankly, ingenious and unconventional solution using small, smuggled FPV drones.
Execute this Operation Spiderweb long planning, audacious methods like cabins on trucks apparently run from an office next to the FSB.
Right. The SBU makes these huge claims. Over 40 aircraft hit, including valuable A-50s, billions in damage, a third of the bomber fleet disabled.
With some initial satellite imagery seeming to confirm significant damage, at least at a couple of the targeted bases, though maybe not the full numbers claimed yet.
And again, really important to stress, all of this detail, all these claims and figures, they come directly from this single source we've been diving into, the Kyiv Independence reporting on Operation Spiderweb.
It's a fascinating narrative they've constructed, and it definitely leaves you, the listener, with something pretty provocative to think about, based purely on the implications of this report.
Which is?
Well, what does an operation like this, if the core details reported are accurate, using low-tech smuggled drones launched remotely from trucks to hit incredibly high-value military assets thousands of miles deep in enemy territory? What does that tell us about how warfare might be changing? Does it suggest that places previously thought completely safe because of distance and defenses are now vulnerable in ways we didn't fully appreciate? Something to definitely mull over.